Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Welcome to the Skookum Show. It does feel like the Truman Show sometimes, doesn't it? Actually, some of the people you meet are so strange. While we're waiting for people to come in, I am doing research for a probably three-parter because it's just so much information to take in. And since, each time we shift, everything's changed, so you have to do research each time to see what's going on in this particular place. And so that's what I'm doing, and I don't know when I'll get that up. Allergy season, my nose is itchy. I hope you are all managing and faring well. Hey, Belu. I was just talking about allergies. And how are you doing? Ah. Oh. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I found my glasses. I started out with saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as this is the Skookum Show, because I was thinking sometimes this feels like the Truman Show with the people you meet that seem to be playing a role, and their behavior doesn't seem to match what you expect sometimes. So are you working on a video or thinking about it? Hi, Mr. Gadget Man. I thought we would talk today. I have some, you know, I'm looking through stuff. I wrote down all these things not long after they happened because I knew I wouldn't remember them because, you don't remember everything, the details sometimes. You remember things you see, but not necessarily dreams and stuff like that. Yeah, I know. It's going to take more than a couple of days for me to do it because to do a video because I have to do research because I don't know that much on the topic. I'm interested, and then every time we shift, we have the rules change slightly. So I'm sure that after a few more shifts, my video might be a little dated in the sense of there may be more changes. But I think the general idea will still be relevant. And when we see changes, we'll be able to kind of understand the impact of them when they happen. So hopefully this will give us a heads up on the kind of way things are. Anyway, I have more stories. And anything weird happened to you guys this week at all? Or has it just been pretty much the same old grind of annoyance and frustration that so many of us have? I know. I remember, it shows me that three are, Yumi and UK. Depression is so omnipresent for so many people. And I decided I needed to do something because I do take medication, but that's just That helps, but it's not the whole thing. Who knows? Anyway, but we all deal with it from time to time. And so I'm doing gardening. I manifested a garden to garden in, and we've been doing that. And getting your hands in the dirt is a wonderful thing. And I know not everybody has that, but you could always get a pot and grow something if you don't have a paid place. Anyway, I wanted to talk about a dream that I had. I know you think with all these stories, I don't realize how many stories I have till I get them out, and I'm printing them out. I'm going, wow, I've had a strange life. So I know we were talking about the strange dreams we've had. And I recommend if you have depression that's that deep, you need to get help, just like I did, because it makes a huge difference. I'm not qualified to treat depression, but I went to someone who was. Anyway, I've had a lot of dreams. I didn't print out my UFO dreams because they're just so out there, and I want to do one just on UFOs. So maybe next week we'll do one on UFOs. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about reincarnation, dreams, and bizarre stuff like that. Let me get my glasses on because I don't want to miss anything. Yeah, I take Cymbalta because I have chronic pain, and it helps me tremendously. All right, where's my thing? Where's my thing? Da, 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 da. Okay, here we go. I print these out because I don't rely on my memory if I can avoid it. That's why when I do Mandela effect now, I try to document it in such a way that I can remember it. Even though my documentation may change because of the shift, I will remember that this will be, this would change necessarily. So, well, back in 2006, I mean, these things happened before I knew anything about Mandela effect, before we really publicly recognized it as something going on. And I'll just read what it says, what I wrote. Some of this dream is like a memory, and some of it is obviously symbolic. Not long ago, I had a vivid dream. I was in Turkey, or in that area of the world. I mean, borders of countries change, but it was in that general area. The time frame, well, might have been anything from pretty far back to 1860 or so, which is a significant year that we know of with the Mandela effect. 1860, 1840, that time frame. Weird things we're finding that are supposedly from that time. We'll go into that another stream. First, I see some army in this dream. Not a typical dream. I don't have these kind of military dreams. I don't come from a military family. I don't have a big interest in conflicts, military conflicts, although some of them are very interesting. But there were a lot of horses, so it wasn't modern times. They were still using horses. And possibly that could be symbolic for meeting the king or leaders of a country, or it could be an actual conflict. There have been many in that part of the world over the millennia. A lot of battles, a lot of people dying, genocides, all kinds of problems. Turkey still won't recognize the numerous genocides against the Armenians where they just marched them out and killed them by the millions. They don't want to admit that, which is sad because, you have to kind of deal with your past. Otherwise, you're doomed to repeat it. So they're all decked out in their battle gear, probably some kind of armor of some kind. I see the horses lined up like those bas reliefs on buildings, where the background is flat and the figures are forward and sculpted in that sense. Um, and they're all like carved on. They're all like the carvings where they have the horses all lined up on these sculptures on buildings, like the Romans did, where they'd have them all unrealistically lined up in a battle formation. Um, but these horses, they're like the Roman art look kind of thing going on, and they're very close together, and they're perfectly immobile. They don't move. Now, horses, you can train them to be very, very still, but it's very difficult, especially if they know there's a battle coming. They're going to be antsy. I grew up around horses. They do not flinch. And I'm close enough that I touch one of them and they don't move. There are also about 30 other women, and we're all dressed as nuns. I'm dressed just like them. There's about 30 of us. They turn. Now, this is a symbolic thing, and I think it means that they were killed. I think that's what this particular symbolism is. They turn into flying black robes that go high in the air, then melt into the ground and disappear. So that's symbolic that they were killed by this military group for some reason, or the king that ruled them, that they were killed, murdered, for being the nuns that they were, of the ethnicity that they were. I hear in my head, which is also symbolic, I'm sure, the women are oil. I have no idea what this means, except perhaps they were a great worth, or that they were people of the land, something like that. And then the dream changes, and I find myself in an old market. Now, this is a very vivid dream, and this is not typical for most dreams. Have kind of a disjointed feel, and this really had a scenes from movies kind of thing going on. But I find myself in an old market. I mean, like the kind they have, like in, the Holy Lands and the Turkey and the open air markets, and it has things in it I've never seen. I'm not familiar with the things they're selling to some degree. And I also find myself dressed in black, and I'm a nun. All this entire dream is me in body. I'm not third person watching myself. I am in body. I have this one front piece bib thing, that some of them wear, this white thing that goes here. It's shaped like a triangle pointed down, just like that. And it's big and white. And I went and researched it. I think the data's on my other computer that my son needs to get the data off the hard drive. Anyway, well, yeah. Nobody wins in conflicts, really, except the people who are in power. We know that. But I looked up this particular front piece bib thing, and like I said, I can't find it right now, but when I would research before, I found it was a very small sect in Turkey. They were originally in Italy, and then they ended up, well, they kept on moving around because they were persecuted. So they were here and there, here and there. And they were Armenian in ethnicity. So they were probably Eastern, possibly Eastern Orthodox kind of thing rather than the Italian Catholics. But I don't know that much about them. I have to do more on that. But eventually I find myself, I'm looking down and seated, can't even talk, seated at a table, an old wooden hewn table, very, very crude. Um, there are two men seated on each side, and I am at the head of the table. And I also notice by my hands that I'm very old. They are wearing robe-like clothing. So this has to be pretty far back. Either that or they are monks. So I'm not really sure if it's like Roman times where they have, but I mean, it'd have to be after that because they didn't have nuns till after 500, 600 AD. So I'm sure it's further, closer to our time than that. But I couldn't swear to it. So I think it's probably 1600s, 1700s, I don't know. But I'm at the head of the table. I'm in a seat of honor, which is a rare experience for me. They're wearing robe-like clothing. I keep my eyes down and murmur only slight answers when they speak to me. We're having some kind of celebration, I think. The only food I recognize is the lamb and the simple cake at the end of the table. And I do believe the plates were wooden or metal. I mean, they were very crude, and then the cups were like metal tin cups kind of thing. And I'm so old that I dropped my plate. It doesn't have anything on it yet. That's probably my hands are arthritic. And the gentleman to my right picks it up for me. I'm obviously being honored. I'm not sure why. Maybe just because I'm old, and that was just an accomplishment in itself. But I feel unworthy and uncomfortable emotionally being honored in this way. And I feel though as though I'm very unaccustomed speaking to men in general, that speaking at all, very unaccustomed to that. So I feel that I was an Armenian nun, and they have a very interesting history in that area of the world and very tragic. There's a story of one Armenian nun who some king, I'm not sure, I have to look this up again, some king fell in love with her because she was extremely beautiful. And there were like 20 or 30 nuns that were with her. And he wanted her to be his concubine or his wife or anything. And she had taken a vow of celibacy to serve God. And she said, no. He says, well, I'll kill your fellow nuns unless you come to me and let me have you. And he ended up killing quite a few of them. And it was very, very, very sad, very strange. And, but as you know, our history is full of people that do horrible things to other people, and it's still going on. And the reasons they do it are just unfathomable. Yeah, well, Gadget Man, sleeping, I've had nights where I don't feel like I'm really asleep because my brain's so busy. And so, yeah, you can feel exhausted in the morning because you really haven't gotten any decent rest, because usually it's a time where your brain kind of kind of, gets rid of the dust of the day. It might work on problems you're having, or it might be a time when you're astral projecting, for all you know. I mean, people say that. Might be a time when you're connecting to other realities as well. I know we were talking about dreams, and I don't remember a lot of my dreams now, because I'm not sleeping really well. But sometimes I remember them, and I've had a dream. I've had several dreams. The ones I do remember are very vivid, but they're very odd, because I'm dreaming like if I'd made a different decision in another timeline, where I would be right now in that relationship, in that marriage, in that whatever it would be. And so I'm having this experience that I feel like that's me, but it's not me. It's me in another timeline. That sometimes we're peeking into other versions of ourselves. And I wonder sometimes when people have really bad nightmares, that very likely it's PTSD, which you need to get help for if you have. I had mild PTSD from being abused by my husband before he got medicated for his bipolar condition. He had rages, and he was hard on us and the kids. So any trauma you can have nightmares. But I was just thinking, what if that trauma was in a past life, if there was such a thing, or in another timeline, which may be the same thing, for all we know. We don't really know these things. We're just investigating. We're just exploring ideas. None of us know for sure what's going on. I used to think that perhaps past lives were genetic memory kind of thing going on, or connecting to the communal consciousness that we share, because supposedly there's no, that all times exist at the same time, so we could plug into another time and another person, or a past life of our own. Well, that's I'd like to talk to you about Ian Stevenson, famous man in the study of reincarnation, a psychologist, psychiatrist. I know he's something like that. I'll put some links up about him. And he went to various countries, but he did a lot of work in Pakistan and India. And thousands of cases of pretty good supporting evidence that there's something strange going on. These children are born with birthmarks, and they're strange birthmarks. And he's investigating. These children are talking about strange things about another lifetime when they're very young. They usually forget a lot of it by the time they're 4 or 5. But if they're early talkers, they'll talk about some bizarre things. And they'll say, well, in my other life, I was shot in the head. And this particular boy had a small birthmark in the back of his head and a larger one where the exit wound would have been in the front. So, he documented huge numbers of these. And I think I might even get his book, because there just isn't much I'm going to try to garner as much as I can online, because I want to do a video on that as well. But Ian Stevenson was just amazing, because he did his homework. He worked hard to disprove a paranormal connection. There was one little girl said that she wanted to see her husband. She's like 4 or 5 years old, in another village and tell them where her dowry was. She had buried her money and she had passed before she could tell someone. And she says, I want to see my children and my husband and everything. And there was no connection between her and this other place. And she could not have gotten this knowledge from her family. And so he takes her to this person. She knows exactly which house it is. She greets everybody in the name that she knew them as in this other lifetime. She tells them where the money is. And these people are either, they're either Hindu, Buddhist, or Muslim. And in India, Pakistan has a lot of Muslims. But I mean, they have, I don't know if the Muslims do, but I know that Hindus and Buddhists believe in reincarnation. So it's not a big shock. They're not going to say, oh, I don't believe you. She was so accurate in everything, and who she knew who everybody was. They accepted her as a reincarnated family member, which is, that's not likely to happen here. Let's put it that way. I mean, people probably think I'm nuttier than a March hare. I have bats in my belfry. And, sometimes when I look at the stories that I've experienced, I'm just going, wow, that's a lot. I know Bubbles has had similar life to me with really bizarre things. But I mean, he does study after study, thousands of these. And I don't think anybody, even a skeptic, could think he's completely off the mark. Whether it's a reincarnation or if it's common stream of consciousness or if it's someone's spirit communicating, I don't know. I used to not believe in it because of my religion. And then, then I started having these dreams. And I had a dream that I was a child in India and I was climbing trees, and I think I was a little boy. And my friend Paula, who's passed, was a family member of mine. And she and I were good friends. And she never paused to put me in place if I was off the mark in any way, but in a kind and funny way. She was a great person. I miss her so much. Anyway, and then I had a past life regression done. And now, Belo, who is that woman that you watch? Because I wanted to write that down because I didn't want to forget that does those past life regressions. Do you remember her name? Because it's very interesting. Because I do want to do a video with a little more detail into reincarnation. But anyway, she still hasn't sent me the transcript. She thought she did. She was getting her training, and what kind of, what do they call that? What is it that has initials, that kind of past life regression? It's the one that Dolores Cannon does. I forget which is, QHHT, that's right. And the funny thing about that? She's a Mandela effect for me. Now, I've been into this stuff, well, you can tell, for quite a long time. And she's written a huge number of books. And I want to read them because she's interesting. And she has videos, that some people have videoed her. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Bela. I'd love to do that because when my past life regression, and I remember it really well, when Paula had hers, she goes so deep, she didn't remember it. But luckily for me, I do remember it. I don't go into a deep hypnotic state, apparently. I'm still, lucid. And she takes you to a place where you stand and there's doorways, and you open a doorway and you go down stairs or whatever, and you're supposed to go outside, and then you're supposed to look at your feet and look around. And I had no shoes on. I had a robe of sorts, Um, and I'm looking toward my village. And the village is being attacked. I know I'm in India, by the way. My village is being attacked, and I'm really upset. I had gone off to get water, so I wasn't there when they were attacked. And I'm living with my grandmother, and we're both in the healing arts. We help people. We're the healers of the village. Um, Herbs and other things that we help people with. And I'm just really upset because I don't understand why our village is being attacked by these foreign soldiers. I couldn't tell you the time frame because some of those villages look the same as they did 1,000 years ago. I mean, there's not a lot of changes depending on where it is. But I couldn't understand why they were attacking the village because we were so poor. We had nothing. We had absolutely nothing. And so I can feel the emotion. I'm just horrified. And I'm worried for my friends and families there. So I go back into the village, and they've killed like 2/3 of the whole village. So of course there's that. But she decides, because that's so upsetting, to take me back to my childhood. And I'm living with my mother in another part of India. And she'd married a Sikh, which are the warrior class, and they're higher caste than she was. And he had married my mother against his family's wishes because he was in love with her. They do mostly arranged marriages. Even now they do that, but they're very good at it because they make sure the two people are compatible and all that. Probably better than we could do ourselves. But I mean, he married against the wishes of his family. I'm sure they had someone else picked out for him. And he was a Sikh. He was a warrior. And apparently he had died in battle. And so my mother, having been brokenhearted over this, dies also because, that happens if you experience tremendous grief. Sometimes your health declines significantly, and I guess that may have been what happened. So the family, the son's family, my father's family, didn't want me because I was basically half caste. I wasn't one of them. My blood was not good enough for them. They have a caste system that's pretty significant. Even now, then they try to overcome it, but there are some areas where it is difficult to marry outside your caste. Well, they sent me back to my grandmother in a little village who was, where they felt I belonged. I didn't belong with these richer and, higher status people. And my grandmother was my great-grandmother in this life, who I never got to meet. But my great-grandmother in this life was a pioneer woman, had come across on the Oregon Trail from Ohio, settled in Washington State along the river, Columbia River. And she was a woman self-educated and well-informed about the healing arts, in the sense that she knew how to get people better. And the Native Americans of the area would come to her for medicines and treatment of illness because their own medicine person had passed. Usually that happens because of disease. People like to think that we subjugated the Native Americans with battling. And then the truth is that we, the white people, very seldom won a conflict with the natives. I believe the content of your spirit and heart determines more than any religion you will belong to. I'm not a religious person because I think most religions are too deluded by man's selfish ambitions. Anyway, so, and that my mother in that life was my mother in this life. And she after my brother had passed in this life, it really took the desire to survive out of her, and she only lived another 10 years or so, 12 years. But anyway, so the theory is that in our past lives, we have the same soul group around us. And they can be friends and family, they can be acquaintances, we'll run into them. There's also other soul groups that are connected that we'll meet, and we'll find I think people that we can relate to as well. I think that's one of the reasons why when you run into people, you feel like you know them, because maybe you do. Maybe you do know them. But anyway, here I am in the village with my grandmother, and a lot of people have been killed. And so we're doing a lot of doctoring. I'm still unmarried. And I know that my grandmother in that life makes a joke that, the men make fun of us for doing what we do to some degree. But they're the biggest babies when they need to be treated for something. And I laughed at that. It's just, that grandma said, oh, they're such babies. They just can't deal with it. A woman will just grit her teeth and handle it, and the men will just be, big ball babies. And it's like, I thought that was funny. So that lifetime, my grandmother got into her head that she wanted to go see this holy man. And I don't know who it was, but I mean, she was pretty advanced in years. She wasn't a robust woman. I don't know. The Indian women are not really big women. The men aren't really necessarily that big either. They're a slighter build than, let's say, the Scandinavians that I'm descended from, and the Germans and the English and the Irish. We're bigger people in general. And her husband was dead, obviously. That's why she was, living alone. That's why I went to live with her. So we go on this journey to see this holy man speak. And it's, she's really not up to it, but, you can't stop this woman. She's determined. And it's very typical of the women in my family. If they're determined to do something, there's nothing you can do about it. It's going to happen. And it's a two-edged sword, but it's also a blessing because it helps you. Hi, I'm doing good, Mrs. M.A. How are you, sweetie? Good to see you. You always look so lovely. I wish I was pretty like you. Anyway, so we go on this journey to see this holy man in this past life regression. And it's pretty taxing on her, but she's determined because she wants to hear this man speak. And this was something that still happens there in India, where people gather in large numbers to hear a guru or some other person of great wisdom to speak. And we got there and we got to hear him speak. There were like a lot of people. And so we must have traveled quite a ways because we were in a little isolated village. So we must have traveled, and I make a bet it was on foot, more than likely. We were quite poor. Not sure. We may have had gotten to go part of it in an oxen cart, but I mean, I don't remember the journey. Getting there wasn't the important thing. But when we came back, she she collapsed when we got home. And I noticed her symptoms, and because I have an OTA degree, I know that she had a stroke. She couldn't move one side of her body. She was bedridden. She couldn't speak, so it was on the side that messes up speech. And it was heartbreaking because she was just incredible. She was an incredible person in this lifetime, and she was an incredible person in that lifetime. She's one of those people that you're just honored to know, okay, in any lifetime. So, but I immediately knew she'd had some kind of something serious, and she didn't last much longer, but everybody in the village came to visit her to say goodbye. And it was very touching, and I cried because I feel weepy now just thinking about it. So when she died, I took over the business, I guess, of helping to heal, because she taught me about the herbs and the healing salves and all the things that help people get better. And one of the men that had lost his wife in that horrible conflict with the military men that came in and killed 2/3 of the people, lost his family. He married me, but he never really recovered from his loss of his family. But I did end up getting married, and then eventually I died as well. And then I had a woman do I got a free reading from a woman in Texas years before this, and she said that I was a pioneer woman and that I had been killed by natives. My children and I had been killed by Native Americans. They killed my husband and they starved me, and they I guess we starved to death or something. I'm not sure. They kept us tied up or something. We couldn't get away. I wasn't sure if that was something real or just a symbolic thing, because she says that's why, that literally wolves were at the door, and that's why I hold on to things too much, material things that I treasure, that I don't mean to be a hoarder of sorts, but I can't resist books, and I can't resist some things. And not having my stuff around me, it's comforting to have my stuff. And she said, well, that's why, because you had nothing, and literally everything was taken from you. So that kind of explains that. And I'm, I can sort of work through why I do things and compensate in a healthier way to deal with things. So when we have these dreams and they're vivid like that, maybe if you remember any of it, you should write it down like I did. I wrote them down because they had meaning to me, and I had to do something so that I would understand what was going on. I have horrible time sleeping. I have bad insomnia. I have like a hamster wheel brain. I have like ADD kind of stuff going on. And I have a certain level of anxiety I think is part of ADD, that not sure it's something that we do on purpose or anything like that. It's just the way we are. I have a very active mind, even though I'm almost 64. I don't ever want to stop learning and doing new things. That's why I'm starting to learn how to do videos and stuff. There's never a time when I want to stop learning. Well, it's awfully hard. A lot of us in the community have trouble sleeping. I'm a night owl, basically. We're supposed to be smarter. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But it is a problem, and it's frustrating. I've been working in a garden that I told you in one of my manifesting video that the lady who had the yard wanted someone to help her, and I needed a place that I could garden that had good soil. And oh my goodness, her yard has the most wonderful. She had it dug up last year and put all those amendments, and it was good soil anyway. And it's just, you pick up the damp soil, it just crumbles just right. It's beautiful soil. being descended from some farmers, I guess it's just in my blood. I just love working in the soil. Yeah, if you write them down, I wrote mine down and I start seeing, when I look at it later, more information from what I wrote down, because at the time it's kind of, um, I don't know, we don't see it because we just dreamt it. So I didn't go back and look. It's like, oh, I see this symbolism here. And when you see these dream dictionaries, and they're helpful, but you need to figure out what the symbols mean to you, because it's your brain that's doing this. So you need to find out what your symbols are all about. And I'm trying to read if there's anything. But I'm starting to, I spent, in 2018, beginning of 2018, I was done with my field work and I got off my chronic pain medicine, and I found that I couldn't do physically the things I had been doing. I'd been doing working out and all kinds of stuff, but it was a synthetic opioid. It's called tramadol. And I said, well, I know they're going to take me off it. I might as well get off of it. And I was so depressed because I couldn't do things. There's no way I could work in the field that I had trained in. I didn't have the strength to take the test, which would be $500, and I'd have to do a name change, would be another $500. And it's like, have to get a new car, all this stuff. And I just said, I just can't do it. And for about a year, I was really mentally and physically immobilized, depressed, overwhelmed, because I found out about the Mandela effect. And it was like, it was a shock, but it also explained so much of what I'd been through in my life. Just explained so much. And it's like, it was comforting in one way, but then another way, it was like I had to change my worldview so severely. So now it's just interesting to me. And, I see changes, and, at first it's like, what the frick? Look at Egypt. It's like, what? I mean, really, people? And, if you're from this timeline, good for you, because you won't see them, and that's okay. I don't have an issue with that, but dang, it can be really, really weird, really weird. But it's interesting too. It's like the biggest mystery ever. But I also believe that everything, that you can't just compartmentalize. Gee, I said it. Everything. That I think there's got to be things that influence other things that influence other things. So I'm not really sure if they're connected in the sense we think it is, the paranormal and the cryptids and all this stuff. If they're connected in the way we think, or if it's just the way the world is changing into as we shift, as we go to another world that's got more weird stuff in it, or that we're manifesting more things that are in mythology into the real world. Because, like I was mentioning with manifesting, if you can manifest things from thought and 0 point and spiritual to physical manifestations and results of the physical world, then you probably can do the other way around. You can probably create in the physical world through energy and focus things that manifest in spiritual, like the university did with that fake ghost that they manifested, who became a real ghost, real phenomenon that people saw, and they made a backstory for him and everything. So it's like what is the line between spirit and physical, and what's going on with people who are shifting? Our consciousness is moving into other timelines, and when we get into another body that has slight changes, it takes a little while to adjust to it, and that's why we have aches and pains and stuff like that. I don't have answers. I'm just inquiring. I'm searching. I'm looking. I'm trying to study. I'm trying to understand. And every time there's a subject you have to study, you have to study it over and over again, because each time you have a big shift, which we had a pretty big one this last time. I think we had two close together. And when you have that happen, you have to restudy, but once you've studied a topic and you know it really well, or a picture or anything, you just have something at least that you've committed to memory, you'll see weird stuff happen. You'll see when there's a shift, you'll say, wait, that's not the way that was. And so I figure the more I study, the more I will notice things, the more my brain will become better at seeing the changes. And besides, it's interesting and good for my brain to study something and to learn something. So this next one I'm doing is probably going to be 3 parts, and it's like, and I can blame Bubbles for that, because she sent me a picture of bizarre looking water. So I've gone down that road, and I have all these studies to read. And I tell you, to disseminate these studies so that I'm not talking over everybody's head, because I don't want to do that. I want to have something that's interesting and easy to understand, because I don't want people to, talk over my head either. And I want to make it something that once I do it, it'll be a record of something I've done, and people can kind of understand that when we shift, those things might change. I don't want to give away let the cat out of the bag. And I don't have my cat today. I guess the novelty of climbing on me while I'm doing a stream has worn off. Anyway, let me look at the chat for a minute. Yeah, well, our days are shorter. I think time is moving faster. So our sleep schedule just messes with it, because especially if you're moving from a timeline that the day is shorter. And so you're not tired when it's bedtime, because your brain's still on, the longer day. I'm not sure. I don't have any answers. I'm just hypothesizing. Well, if you're active during the day, sometimes that helps. Like I'm doing this gardening, and after a year of being really, really not doing anything, I'm getting my strength back. But it's like, it's slow going when you're my age to get back active again. But it's wonderful to be outside and hear the birds singing. And she has 2 huge dogs that are just lovely animals, and cats that visit you when you're in the bathroom, wanting to be held. Or lick your toes or something, very strange cats. And it's good. It's good to be out in the sunshine in the morning and get your hands in the dirt, come inside, and in the heat of the day, and be able to, you've got something done. Yeah, the early morning is beautiful. I love early morning and twilight, my 2 favorite times of the day. Early morning because everything's waking up, and twilight because everything's settling down for the night creatures, and the sunsets and stuff. It's very pretty. That was interesting, your walk at the Duke Estate. There's some bizarre stuff there. Really strange looking stuff there. Yeah, when you first start moving more, my back was hurting. I have scoliosis. I have one hip higher than the other, so my gait is not the best. And even though I put a lift in one shoe, it's really just not really helping. I have a big 3-dimensional curve in the middle of my back, and Yeah, but you just have to pace yourself, and you might be sore the next day, so just give yourself a day break, and then get up the next day and do a little more. And yeah, yeah. Well, good. I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing more video of the Duke estate. That was interesting. I just thought it looked like they built that house on one of those mound builder hills. It really looks like that. Very strange. Yeah, I did some mud flood video that I need to get up. I had to. My phone kept on turning itself off. I have an HTC One 8. Um, I love my phone. It's a great phone. It's one of the best, in my opinion, for being sturdy and multi-use. And it kept on turning off. I looked, it was charged and everything. I looked it up and I said, "Oh, you probably need to do a restart and a backup, a reinstall backup." And so I did, and it's like a new phone. So I did that. I did a factory install, and then I downloaded my backup. So it's all good now. All good. All good. Yay. My Doctor Who background. Um, so I just recommend that if you have a dream that's particularly vivid, write down some key words or key points. You don't always have to write the whole thing. If you write enough of the key words stuff, you might remember the whole dream. It'll help you. Or you can write it down later because the keywords will remind you of what you dreamed or dreamt. So next week, I think I'm going to share UFO dreams and experiences that I've had and my family's had. And if you have any experiences that you'd like to share, please do so. If you don't want to say them yourself, you can email me and I'll read them online here. And I'll share your story because I know so many of us have had some pretty bizarre stuff going on. And I think I'd like to end with a paranormal experience. We were talking about fairies and stuff and angels and stuff last week. And I have a paranormal story that is something that happened to my mother. Make sure I have the right thing. That's about it. And I said, let me tell you what I recall. The story told to me by my mother. My mother was honest to a fault. She just, she would not say anything if she couldn't tell you the truth, basically. When I was a baby, we lived in along not too far from the Columbia River in a ranch house that we rented. And the electrical system in the house was faulty, and almost everything we had went up in flames. I was a year old. My sister grabbed me. My brother Clark grabbed his stamp collection, which I still have. Funny things that people value, right? Most precious things were spared, our lives. All the quilts my mother had made with her grandmother were destroyed, and all the family things were gone. Now, my mother was not a big woman, but she was determined. She was a very strong person. She was very wiry. She was a very slender, thin woman. And she was very agitated. She was outside one of the walls where there was a window. And inside this room was a box of important papers that she just had to go in and get it. And this is a fire going on here. And there were a couple of farm boys there, ranch hands or whatever, and they grabbed her. And I mean, two big strapping young men even she couldn't break away from their grasp. I'm sure she did a good job of trying. And they held her as she watched her house go up in flames with everything in it. And that box that was in that room, she wanted to get so badly. It had important things in it. Now you can argue that her mental ability to do things to affect her environment stepped in. Perhaps it was. I don't know. I don't know. But before them, in the open window, appeared that box. From what I understand, it was suspended in the window, and it flew to her feet. The box that she wanted to go in and get. Two men as witness saw the impossible with their own eyes. And I thought, well, maybe it was like a heat thing, kind of lifted it up and threw it out the window. You can think about possibilities. I can't think of ways that would happen. It's possible. Yeah, but one problem is that this box was on the other side of the room under a desk. So you can come to your own conclusions. My mother was smart. My great-grandmother, her grandmother helped raise her. I used to be thinner, but then I have health problems that have messed my metabolism up, and I gained a lot of weight very quickly. A lot of people think that thinner people are smarter, but that's not always. My mother actually had a health problem. That's why she was so thin. So I like to think that we are not the sum of our physicality. Anyway, so that's the story of the box that flew out the window to my mother's feet. Did an angel do it? Did my mother do it? I don't know. But it's food for thought. Strange things that I've told you. I told you I look like I have all these weird stories, and it's like my strange life I've had. And when the Mandela effect came around, I'm like, oh, just one more strange thing. What's the news? What's new? Of course this is happening to me too. It's not going to be, And I tell you, when I realized what was going on, it's like, people aren't going to believe me. No one's going to believe me. And I found a few people that believed me, and I tell you, that was very comforting. Like, okay, if I'm crazy, I got company. Oh, Balo, you look okay. Yeah, we live in a weird place. We do indeed. And it just gets weirder. I'll do a talk on UFOs and dreams next week, okay? And if you have any, you can email me at skookum65@gmail.com if you have a story that you want me to share, or anything that you've experienced that, even if you don't want to share it, you can say, don't share this, and that's fine too, if you just need someone to tell. And I tell you, sometimes it takes a little courage to come out and say, I'm a little crazy. All men are gross, Balo. You're just normal. I think that, if anyone ever tells you that you can't learn things when you get older, that's just a narrative they want you to believe, because it's not true. Your brain just keeps growing and making more brain cells all your life. Plasticity is a lifelong ability of your brain. So just remember not to believe the BS out there and to believe in yourself. Okay? Because you've got something to offer. And I hope you share what you have to offer with others. So I say, good morning, good evening. No, I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hope you enjoyed the Skookum show. It was wonderful to see you all. And you all take care, okay? And I'll see you next week at 11:30 Pacific Daylight Time and 6:30 GMT plus an hour or minus an hour. I guess I don't know what it is for you guys in the UK. You figure it out. You take care and take care of yourself. Do self-care. This lady that I work with that I've been doing the garden with is a nurse, an EMT nurse, and she says you have to remember it's about self-care. And that's okay. You can watch it later. I told more stories. Just remember to try to stay grounded and to not let other people's opinion of you phase you. I mean, that's hard. I've kind of learned that. Like I said, I'm only 64. It's taken me a long time to grasp that my self-worth is not contingent to other people's opinions. That I have worth regardless of how people think of me, or even of how I think of myself. So you take care and try to stay out of trouble, okay? Good night, everybody. Good afternoon and good morning. You take care. And thank you so much for coming by. We'll talk about UFOs next week. Bring a story. Bye-bye.